usually when we talk about a map, there's this, like, expectation of absolute reality.
Right.
You look at the topographical lines, you see a marked path winding through a mountain range, and you just sort of assume that...
It's going to be a smooth hike.
Exactly. You assume that if you just follow that line on the paper, you're guaranteed to make it to the other side.
Yeah, it's a very comforting illusion. We desperately want to believe that a beautifully drawn map is, the exact same thing as a successful journey.
Right. But then you actually step foot on the trail.
And reality hits.
Yeah. Suddenly, that beautiful piece of paper doesn't help you when the physical bridge is just, well, watched out. It doesn't help you when a freak blizzard rolls in, or when your supply line breaks down, or when your crew is just completely exhausted and demoralized.
They're just standing there.
You're standing there looking at this pristine theoretical document while your actual operational reality on the ground is in total collapse.
It's a nightmare scenario.
It is. And that disconnect between the map and the mountain is responsible for a staggering statistic from the Project Management Institute.
The failure rate.
Yes. Nearly 2/3 of failed business strategies die simply because of poor execution. 2/3.
Which is just wild. Organizations are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into developing these, flawless strategic visions, only to watch them completely disintegrate the moment they make contact with the daily friction of the actual company.
Which is exactly why we're doing this. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Our mission today is to figure out why these brilliant business strategies constantly fail.
And how to actually fix them.
Right. So we are pulling apart a truly fascinating March 2026 LinkedIn article. It's by J.D. Parashar, the founder and director of Rethynk AI Innovation and Research.
That's a great piece.
The piece is titled Strategy, Systems, and Scale, a New Consulting Framework. And it essentially argues that the entire consulting industry has been, well, selling us a massive delusion.
Yeah, a very expensive delusion.
Right. So for you listening, whether you are a manager trying to implement a new workflow or an executive looking at a massive transformation roadmap.
Or honestly, just someone frustrated by broken processes at work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This deep dive will give you a totally new lens to understand why things break down and, crucially, how Parashar's new framework provides a blueprint for actual execution in the AI era. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, so Parashar starts by basically taking a sledgehammer to what he considers the foundational myth of corporate problem solving.
Strategy is enough.
Exactly. The idea that strategy alone is sufficient. For decades, the consulting model has been anchored in this broken promise.
Right.
This idea that if you just provide the right strategy, the results will inevitably follow.
Like magic.
Like magic, right. It is this massive over-indexing on analysis and theoretical frameworks while, severely underemphasizing the mechanical design required to make those frameworks actually function in the real world.
And we see the symptoms of this literally everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
You have companies with incredibly aggressive market entry strategies that they never manage to capture actual market share.
Yeah.
Or you see fragmented implementations, right?
Yeah.
Where the European division is running a completely different playbook than the North American division.
Despite both having the exact same strategic mandate.
Yes. It's wild.
What's fascinating here is how the comment section of Parashar's article immediately validates this pain point from people actively working in the trenches.
Oh, the comments were so validating.
They really were. Dr. Gurpreet Singh brought up that exact PMI finding you mentioned earlier about the 2/3 failure rate.
Right.
And then another commenter, Mahdi Hassan, noted that, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, that strategy is the easy part.
Yeah.
Execution is where things usually fall apart. So the consensus is clear, right? The industry's mastered the art of planning, but the machinery of execution is just fundamentally broken.
I think to put that into perspective, the way Parashar describes traditional consulting is essentially like handing an ambitious city developer a breathtaking, award-winning architectural blueprint.
For a skyscraper.
Yeah, like a 150-story skyscraper. You hand over the schematics, roll up the paper, and just walk away.
Good luck.
Right, good luck. But you have provided no construction crew. You haven't secured any cranes.
There's no concrete.
There is absolutely no supply chain mechanism to actually move the steel and concrete into the center of the city. You just have a very, very expensive piece of paper.
You have the intent, but absolutely zero operational capability to manifest it.
Oh, wait, let me push back on this for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Because if a company pays a top-tier firm $10 million for a comprehensive strategy, isn't the how-to supposed to be baked into that deliverable by default?
I think so.
Right. I mean, how can you even call it a strategic roadmap if it's purely theoretical? Shouldn't a good blueprint explicitly dictate how the building gets built?
So that assumption right there, that is the exact trap that ensnares most executive boards.
Really?
Yeah. Parashar makes a very specific, critical distinction to dismantle that idea. In his framework, strategy is merely the intent.
It's just the intent.
Right. It defines the what and the where. Like, what are the priority outcomes? Where is our competitive advantage? How do we define value in this market?
Okay, I see.
Strategy is a mechanism for making choices and setting direction. It is not, and has never been, an operational architecture.
So you're saying the strategy is just the declaration of war, but it doesn't tell you how to supply the troops.
Precisely. That is a perfect way to put it. To turn that strategic intent into reality, you have to move to the immediate next step in Parashar's framework.
Which is the systems layer.
Exactly, the systems layer. Systems act as the crucial translation mechanism. If strategy is the what, systems determine the how.
And to be clear, he's not just talking about IT infrastructure here. Right?
No, not at all. He is defining systems as the underlying physics of the organization.
Wow, the physics.
Yeah. How are decisions actually routed? What are the day-to-day process flows? How does critical information travel from a frontline worker to the C-suite?
Right.
And most importantly, how is accountability structurally maintained?
You know, that distinction changes everything. And I want to relate this directly to you listening, because you've probably felt this.
Oh, definitely.
Have you ever sat through a corporate kickoff meeting with a glossy new vision, only to go back to your desk and use the exact same clunky software and broken approval processes?
It's infuriating.
It is. That is a systems failure. Let's look at how this mechanism actually plays out in a high-stakes scenario. Imagine a massive, say, $500 million post-merger acquisition. Two massive global logistics companies merge. The CEO gets on stage, the new strategy is unified global synergy, and the strategic intent is to cross-sell shipping routes seamlessly.
Seems great on paper.
The strategy is brilliant, but then the regional managers go back to their desks and they realize the legacy enterprise resource planning systems.
The ERPs.
The ERPs, yeah. They don't talk to each other.
So the underlying system fundamentally rejects the new strategy.
Exactly. To book a cross-platform shipment, a manager has to export a CSV file from the old system, manually reformat the data, and email it to a director in another time zone.
Oh, wow.
Just to upload it into the new system.
Yeah.
It takes 4 days to do something that should take 4 seconds.
So what happens?
The friction is so high that the managers just stop trying to cross-sell. They revert to their old siloed behaviors.
Right.
Meanwhile, the executive board is sitting in a room wondering why the brilliant synergy strategy is failing, completely blind to the fact that the actual workflows, the systems, are actively fighting the intent.
And Parashar explicitly warns about this. He says if systems are not fundamentally redesigned to match the new strategy, human behavior will always default to whatever the existing system allows.
Always. Water finds the lowest point.
Exactly. And the systems-level thinking is deeply ingrained in his methodology. You can see it in his broader body of work, actually.
Really?
Yeah. For instance, just days before this piece, he published an article titled The Illusion of the Bypass Canal: Geopolitical Realities and Engineering Limits in the 2026 Strait of Hormuz Crisis.
Okay, that is a fascinating jump-in topic.
It is, and just to be clear to our listeners, we're looking at this strictly as impartial evidence of his analytical approach, not taking any political stance on the conflict itself.
Right. We are totally neutral here.
Exactly. But the underlying analytical framework he uses is identical. Whether he is analyzing the cascading engineering bottlenecks of global maritime shipping routes during a geopolitical crisis, or diagnosing why a post-merger corporate workflow is stalling, Parashar views the world purely as interconnected systems.
Not isolated functions.
Right. You cannot introduce a new shipping route or a new corporate strategy without re-engineering the entire operational flow. If you ignore the friction points, the system collapses under the weight of the new demand.
So what does this all mean? For a company trying to actually execute? Because it means fixing the immediate bottleneck is only step one.
Yeah.
Let's say you do fix that ERP issue for your top-performing logistics team. The data flows smoothly, decisions are automated, and that specific team is crushing their synergy targets.
You're doing great.
You're doing great. But you still have a massive vulnerability, because a bespoke, handcrafted system that works perfectly for a specialized team of 50 people will almost certainly shatter when you try to force it onto 10,000 employees.
Across 12 different regulatory environments.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the third pillar of the framework, scale. This is the boundary line between a localized, temporary win and a permanent organizational transformation.
Scale.
Yeah. Parashar defines scale by looking at replication. Can the performance generated by your new system be replicated consistently as organizational complexity multiplies?
Right.
Can it survive contact with different geographical constraints, different departmental cultures, and wildly different data inputs?
In other words, can you industrialize the success, or was it just a lucky prototype?
Exactly. And to industrialize it, you have to build specific scaling mechanisms. You need standardized governance protocols. You need automated compliance checks. And most importantly, you need continuous feedback loops built directly into the system architecture so that when a process breaks down in the Tokyo office, the system learns from it and updates the protocol in the London office automatically.
Without human intervention.
Right. Without those scaling mechanisms, a successful pilot program will eventually degrade and die on the vine as soon as the executive attention shifts to the next shiny object.
And Parashar visualizes this failure beautifully.
Yeah.
He breaks down what happens when these three layers, strategy, systems, and scale, are misaligned. It's kind of a brutal matrix.
It really is.
He says if you have a strong strategy but weak systems, you get poor execution. We just covered that, right?
Yeah.
The skyscraper blueprint with no construction crew.
The intent is clear, the capability is absent.
Right. Then he flips it. He says if you have strong systems but an unclear strategy, you get misaligned effort. So you have the fastest, most efficient construction crew in the world, pouring concrete at record speeds, but they're building the skyscraper on entirely the wrong lot.
Because nobody gave them a map.
Because nobody gave them a map. But the third scenario, to me, is the most insidious. He says, strong execution with no scalability equals a localized win with limited impact.
That is the tragedy of the brilliant pilot program.
It's like being the smartest kid in a very small room.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You have cracked the code, you are generating incredible value, but you are trapped behind the glass wall. You have no structural mechanism to share that wealth or replicate that success across the enterprise. The enterprise starves while one department feasts.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you begin to understand why the traditional consulting model feels so, I don't know, hollow to modern executive.
Yeah.
Consultants typically parachute in, solve for one, maybe two of these variables, declare victory, and leave.
We did it.
We did it! Invoices in the mail. But Parashar argues that true, durable transformation only occurs when strategy, systems, and scale are architected to align simultaneously.
But achieving that kind of massive simultaneous alignment introduces a totally new critical bottleneck: human management capacity.
Right.
There's simply not enough hours in the day or enough analysts in a given company to manually govern the scale of highly complex systems in 2026.
No, it's impossible.
Which forces us to look at the disruptive variable Parashar believes must be embedded into the core of this framework.
The intelligence accelerator. Artificial intelligence.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This is step 4 of Rethynk AI's practical leadership framework, integrating AI across the entire stack.
And we need to be very clear about the mechanism here.
Yes, please.
Parashar is not talking about bolting a generative AI chatbot onto your customer service portal so the marketing team can issue a press release.
Right, it's not a gimmick.
Exactly. He argues that AI must be woven into the actual operational architecture. It must inform the strategy, power the systems, and enable the scale. Without it, the framework simply cannot handle modern complexity.
It's structural.
Yes. Parashar views AI not as a software tool, but as foundational infrastructure. You see this reflected in his other writings, actually, with titles like AI Without Strategy is Just Expensive Automation and Your Brand is Already Being Judged by Its AI Maturity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he is deeply critical of organizations that use AI merely to do old processes slightly faster. He believes AI must be the engine that makes the execution itself inherently intelligent.
Okay, let me offer an analogy here to explain the mechanism of how this changes the paradigm.
Go for it.
Let's use a self-driving car. Or wait, let me actually pivot to biology. I think it works better.
Okay, real life.
Think of a traditional corporate structure as a biological organism.
Right.
The executive board, the strategy layer, is the brain. The operational systems are the central nervous system carrying messages back and forth. In a traditional company, if the hand touches a hot stove, the nerves have to send a signal all the way up the arm, into the spine, up to the brain.
Which takes time.
It takes time. The brain holds a committee meeting, decides the stove is hot, formulates a strategy to move the hand, and sends a signal all the way back down. By the time the hand moves, third-degree burns have set in.
A catastrophic failure of speed and scale.
Exactly. What Parashar is describing with AI integration is the creation of a corporate reflex arc.
Ah.
In human biology, a reflex arc allows a signal to bypass the brain entirely. The nerves in the spinal cord process the danger and instantly pull the hand away before the brain even registers the pain.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks. When AI is powering the systems and enabling the scale, it acts as that reflex arc. If a geopolitical event suddenly causes a micro shortage of a critical component in your supply chain, an AI-powered system doesn't wait for the quarterly board meeting to update the strategy.
Right, it doesn't need to.
It instantly analyzes real-time shipping data, automatically reallocates procurement budgets from a less critical subsidiary, and dynamically adjusts the global market entry strategy on the fly.
So the AI is actively informing the strategy based on real-time systems data, creating an operational loop that functions, frankly, faster than human cognition.
Yes.
It isn't just automating a task. It is executing intelligent, autonomous decisions at a scale humans literally cannot manage.
Which raises, honestly, a pretty deep existential question about the consulting industry itself.
Oh, for sure.
If we are integrating AI to dynamically inform the strategy at the top, autonomously run the complex systems in the middle, and govern the replication at the bottom, are we even consulting anymore?
Good question.
Or are we essentially just building a digital brain and nervous system for the corporation?
We are absolutely building a digital nervous system. I mean, traditional consulting was about optimizing the human operators. This new framework is about architecting an intelligent system that continuously optimizes itself. However, and this is a big however, that transition exposes the most vulnerable point of Parashar's entire philosophy.
Which is?
Because while AI brings the speed, the scale, and the autonomous intelligence, this flawless digital architecture still have to be inhabited by human beings.
Oh, yeah. And human beings are notoriously excellent at breaking perfect systems.
They really are. Which brings us to application. If you, listening to this, want to actually implement Parashar's framework without your own workforce rejecting it, we have to look at the intersection of technological systems and human psychology.
Right.
Parashar outlines a practical, sequential leadership framework to navigate this.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, you align strategy with clear, measurable business outcomes. Second, you rigorously redesign your operational systems, your decision frameworks, and process structures around that strategic intent. Third, you build those processes for global scale from day one, establishing standardized feedback loops. And fourth, you integrate AI as the intelligent engine driving all three layers.
Okay, so as a sequence, it makes total logical sense. But it feels almost clinical.
It does.
It assumes the human workforce is just going to happily adopt this hyper-efficient AI-driven architecture.
This raises an important question, and it is one that the professional community immediately keyed in on. In the discussions surrounding Parashar's piece, an industry expert named Sanjay Mensukani made a really profound observation.
What did he say?
He noted that strategy, systems, and scale can only achieve true alignment when there's top-down consensus and, crucially, a reward for all the players.
A reward for all the players. Let me synthesize exactly why that is the linchpin of this entire deep dive.
Please do.
You can hire the most brilliant systems architects on Earth. You can design a flawless AI-powered reflex arc to scale your company's visionary strategy.
Right.
But if you do not fundamentally redesign the human incentive architecture, the actual mechanism of how your employees are evaluated, how they earn their bonuses, and how they secure promotions, they will actively go to war with your new system.
Wow. Yeah, the technological system and the human incentive system must share the exact same mathematical objective.
Exactly. Let's go back to our massive logistics company. Let's say the AI system is architected to optimize for long-term fleet fuel efficiency across the globe, which aligns perfectly with the board's new green energy strategy.
Okay.
But the regional dispatch managers are still receiving their quarterly financial bonuses based purely on raw, localized delivery speed.
Oh, I see where this is going. The AI wants to route the trucks efficiently. The human wants to route them as fast as possible to hit their bonus metric.
The human will bypass the AI every single time.
Every time.
They will log into the system, override the algorithmic routing, and manually dispatch the trucks the old way. They will actively break the billion-dollar operational architecture because the incentive system literally pays them to break it.
That's incredible.
Your strategy must be designed to execute not just technologically, but culturally. If the operational system asks an employee to do one thing, but the financial incentive system pays them to do another, the strategy is dead on arrival.
The operational architecture Parashar advocates for is incomplete without human incentive alignment. True scale is impossible if the workforce is financially motivated to subvert the systems.
Exactly. So as we pull all of these threads together, what is the core shift in mindset here?
It's a big one.
It really is. It is that leaders need to stop walking into boardrooms and asking Parashar's outdated question. We have to stop obsessing over, do we have the right strategy?
Right.
Asking if you have the right strategy is just asking if you have a pretty map. It is comforting, but ultimately useless on its own.
It is entirely the wrong question for the complexity of the modern business environment.
Instead, you should be looking at your managers, your directors, and your technology stack and asking, is our organization structurally designed to execute and scale this strategy consistently?
Yep.
Because as Parashar concludes, competitive advantage no longer belongs to the companies that simply plan better. The advantage belongs to those who have the systems to execute intelligently at scale.
And exploring that concept of algorithmic execution leads to a rather provocative thought that I want to leave you, the listener, to mull over.
Oh, I love these.
We have spent this deep dive unpacking Parashar's assertion that AI should be integrated to inform the strategy and power the systems. But consider the title of another one of his recent pieces, Competitive Advantage is Now Algorithmic.
Okay.
If you think deeply about the mechanisms we've discussed today, that premise opens a fascinating Pandora's box.
I can see the dominoes lining up. Where does algorithmic advantage ultimately take us?
Well, consider the reflex arc analogy we used. We architect these AI systems to process massive amounts of operational data at a scale humans cannot comprehend, all in service of executing our human strategy.
Right.
But what happens when that AI system becomes so incredibly intelligent and its feedback loops become so advanced that its algorithmic analysis determines the original human strategy it was given is mathematically fundamentally flawed?
Wait, really? The system outgrows the intent?
Precisely. Today, Parashar's framework is telling us we need to rigorously redesign our operational systems to fit our brilliant human strategies. But tomorrow, in a fully integrated algorithmic organization, you might find that paradigm entirely inverted.
Wow.
You might not be redesigning systems to fit your strategy. You might find yourself having to constantly adapt your human strategy just to keep up with the real-time intelligence and autonomous discoveries of your own systems.
That's wild.
It forces us to ask, in the fully realized intelligent organization of the near future, who is really leading whom? Is the human strategy dictating the system, or is the algorithmic system dictating the strategy?
The map starts dynamically drawing itself based on what the terrain demands.
Exactly.
That is a wild, paradigm-shifting thought to leave off on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Tomorrow, when you walk into work or log onto your corporate dashboard, take a hard, critical look at the workflows, the software, and the incentive structures you are forced to use, and ask yourself, is this machinery actually built to scale our intent? Or are we all just staring at a pretty map while the mountain crumbles? We'll catch you next time.